Aloha mai kako. You are watching Hawaii Political Reporter.
Aloha, and thank you for watching Hawaii Political Reporter. Tonight we will have stories on the border meltdown and the administration's attempt to muzzle and cover up what's actually happening with the media. We will have stories relating to the environment about Monsanto, GMO, the bees that are being affected by it, and other stories relating to the environment. And we'll finish up with a bunch of stories mostly on the lack of transparency, the continuing attempt by the administration and government to muzzle the people and to devour really their rights, to suppress them. All right, we'll start off with the border meltdown. Now, this is not primarily a political statement. I mean, I have my opinions on this issue too, and being part Native American, it may be a little different than quote unquote both sides of this. But what I am really concerned about here is the obvious muzzle and attempt to keep the people in the dark from what is happening, the pressure on the media, and also the disease potentially coming over, and the complete disregard of law. If the quote-unquote authorities and our politicians will not follow law, how do they expect to have an orderly, or any kind of society that functions reasonably? It's impossible. I mean, if you're wanting anarchy, then basically they're promoting it because, there's no rule of law. That's essentially what they're going after, it seems. So at any rate, starting off with our first story, this is from thedailycaller.com, and this is dated on 7/5/2014. This is from Neil Monroe. We have the border meltdown, Obama delivering 290,000 illegals to U.S. homes. This is significant. I mean, 290,000 people of any kind, okay? We have many here in this country who are not getting any care. Now, this isn't trying to be, look, we understand anybody with their right mind would try to come to a better situation. So you can't blame anybody for trying to come up here. And certainly women, children, you want to help them all. But, this is going to be a large impact, especially if they're coming in en masse in a short period of time, with potentially lots of disease as common. I mean, a lot of people come here to have their babies so they can have a U.S. citizenship. This is known, especially from China. A lot are doing it, and a lot of them are coming here for the medical. This is, there's a lot of people who do not have medical care and cannot afford it, and they don't want to, like, for example, me, I don't want anything to do with Obamacare. I will not have it dropped on me. I'm just not going to participate, period. And yet, people who are coming paying nothing, they're getting it fully. So I think we have a real dichotomy here in this country, and it's very hypocritical, And again, it's just nothing against any individuals. God bless them. Thank you for the good work the church is doing, and for those truly, some kids just probably saying to go. They're pushing them out. They may have some desperate situation, so we have to have pity and compassion on those. But the situation itself is obviously way out of control, So going on to foxnews.com, and again, I'm not right-wing, I'm not a Republican, let me make that clear. I generally dislike Fox News in the extreme, But in this case, and interestingly enough, some of them, they're making some coverage of this when their big chief is all pro-immigration. So all the media in general, you have to know, the mainstream media is being muzzled and or is, basically essentially complicit with the administration on this. And this is not, again, about the policy. I've given you some hints how I may feel, but that's not really the issue. The issue is transparency and the right for the American people to know what is going on, and the right to control our borders so that there's no disease, at least. Even if you want to have a policy of open borders, fine, I mean, I'm not, I'm just talking in theory here, but, have some control of them, so that there's not, not an influx or an overwhelming situation at once to the community and those involved, because that is essentially what seems to be happening here. So this is from the foxnews.com. Medical staff warn, keep your mouth shut about illegal immigrants or face arrest. This is by Todd Starnes, published on July 1, 2014. A government contracted security force threatened to arrest doctors and nurses if they divulged any information about the contagion threat at a refugee camp housing illegal alien children at Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas, sources say. Isn't this right out of Nazi Germany? You will do what you say, what you're told, as we say, and nothing more. You have no opinion. You cannot. We're talking about the freedom of expression here, essentially. These people are being muzzled. I mean, that's unbelievable. Okay, now they could ask, okay, in certain ways, okay, for certain things, but to make that threat, it's absolutely outrageous. And again, this is another gigantic black mark on our transparent administration. Not that any of them have really been that good, especially I would say since Kennedy, but gee whiz, okay? I mean, that's just really pushing the limit, okay? Here's another example of this on Infowars.com, okay? This is dated 7/4/2014. We see feds threaten journalists with prison over report on illegal immigration. DOD claims reporter engaged in unauthorized photography and broadcast outside immigration shelter. Again, this is on Infowars, and they have a letter, okay, from the Department of Defense basically threatening a reporter. Again, total control. I mean, if we're not talking about propaganda, I mean, and absolute iron fist big brother control. I mean, I don't know what we are. I mean, this is beyond, when you put the whole pieces together, it's beyond Orwell, actually, in many ways. Okay, now we're going to that next story, nationalreview.com, dated July 21st. This is, excuse me, I take that back. This is July 7th by Joel Garrick. And the HHS will muzzle the media during tour of immigrant child housing. Here's some of the things basically the HHS says, okay, that you're going to be allowed and not allowed to do on their tour. No recording devices will be allowed. No questions will be allowed during the tour. No interacting with staff and children at the shelter. We ask that your questions be provided via email or phone after the tour to Kenneth Wolf. Blah, 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 okay, etc. We will provide photos of the facility after the tour. There will be no on-site interviews. So in other words, we're going to lock it down and keep the information. Again, whatever you feel about this issue and the, flood of humanity coming across, my God, this is unbelievable. We are being denied information for our government. It's like, are we in this at all? Do we count? Or do we just simply have a king? Because this is essentially what we're getting here, I believe. Okay, now here's one, okay, on the other side of this, so to speak, and this is a totally unrelated issue, but what I say on the other side of this, here we have some media actually giving information, but now they're being admonished for giving the information. The BBC admonished for giving climate change deniers equal time. This is from the WashingtonPost.com, and this is July 7th. By Gail Sullivan, okay? Now, whatever you feel on global warming, and I've studied this to a good amount, and I have some opinions, and I think the key words are anthropogenic global warming, okay? Because, you can argue this out with reasonable merits both ways, I feel. But at any rate, how about the right to have the information and argue it out? I'm sorry, basically some scientists here are saying, okay, basically, and others, the broadcasters are saying that too much time is being given to climate change deniers and others on the scientific fringe. Excuse me? There's many things that have been on the fringe that later go to become mainstream. And if they are on the scientific fringe, we'll bring on somebody else to point that out, okay, or discredit them. Okay? I mean, again, we see a pattern of suppression of information. We want to have our thinking done for us. Yeah, right. Thank you, government. Got it. Not.
From RT, U.S. honeybee population suffers unsustainable death rate over the winter. And it's funny to hear these stories from RT because RT, Russia Today, does a great job of, providing counter propaganda to the American broadcast puppet media, the prostitutes that regurgitate government propaganda. And here we have this story. Nearly 1/4 of the U.S. honeybee population died over the winter, according to an annual survey. Beekeepers report the losses remain higher than they consider sustainable, and the death rate could soon affect the country's food supply. Now, my first inclination here is to go, well, geez, what is it that the government's doing that could possibly kill off bees? Oh yeah, chemtrails, no shit, weather manipulation, spraying heavy metals in the air to manipulate the weather, to induce rain, to whatever it is that they're doing in secret right now. But it's not even like that hard to figure out. It's a lot more obvious than that, and I'm sure that that has some effect. But this story that's from just a few days ago talks about, how flowering plants rely on pollinators and how the USDA had actually said that bees pollinating adds $15 billion to the value of U.S. crops. And this is actually something that has been now produced by a partnership between the USDA, the Apiary Inspectors of America, and the Bee Informed Partnership. Yeah, clever. 23.2% of honeybee colonies died over the winter, which is higher than the acceptable winter mortality rate of 18.9%. So they go into these things and they say, well, it might be that it was the winter, and it might be, other things, popular insecticides, and fluctuations in the results of these losses, and it's probably health related. But just to be safe, who does RT quote? Bee Logics, a Monsanto-owned bee health company and a collaborator on the annual survey, laid much of the blame for the colony collapses on the varroa mite, an Asian bee parasite found in the U.S. in 1987. Yeah, it's been here since 1987, and just now it's becoming a real problem. No, and what's funny is that they do mention pesticides in this article, but they skip the fact that there is something particularly dastardly going on here that a company like Monsanto might just have some interest in as a major chemical producer. This is from RT from almost exactly 1 year ago, May 11, 2013. U.S. approves new pesticides linked to mass bee deaths as EU enacts ban. In the wake of a massive United States Department of Agriculture report highlighting the continuing large-scale death of honeybees, environmental groups are left wondering why the EPA has decided to approve a highly toxic new pesticide. The continuing mass death of honeybees, known scientifically as colony collapse disorder and a pollinator crisis, could well strain production of over 100 crops in the U.S., including apples, zucchinis, avocados, and plums. The agriculture value of these products is estimated over $200 billion globally per year. So it's not enough that the government has approved a pesticide and said that it is okay for use, and basically if it has environmental consequences, you as an American have no recourse as a food producer. If your zucchinis, apples, avocados, or plums lose some of that $200 billion value because there's less pollination taking place, you have no recourse. But it's bad enough that they're stealing from the American public in order to subsidize all of these programs, the approval process, and so forth, and the corporation Monsanto in general. But that now it is having this much broader effect on the economy, on food production here in the United States, just shows another. I would like to think being generous, we could chalk this up to an unintended consequence, but I have no doubt that the people engineering these policies anticipated this entirely, and it's just one more part of the general plan to make us more dependent on food processing corporations for processed foods, for GMOs, and all the other crap that they want to poison us with. And it's easy to fight back and opt out, although you might not be able to do anything about the declining bee population. At least you can grow your own vegetables, you can buy local, you can buy organic, and support food producers that have policies that you can support and believe in.
Okay, now we go to the death of the bees. This is from globalresearch.canada. This is Death of the Bees, Genetically Modified Crops and the Decline of Bee Colonies in North America. This is by Brett Amos. It was originally published on August 9th of 2011. Sorry, not that old at all. But just a couple things to point out here. Basically, Monsanto is doing the deal where, it's not GMO, it's not a issue of GMO. And as many other industries, people, governments, they always try to confuse the people and bring in other irrelevant factors or mostly irrelevant factors. In this article, they point out argument one, that the demise, if you're not following it, there's a big problem with bees. There's a large stress on them. And I'm sure it is not just GMO, even though GMO is probably the predominant issue here. And there will be some proof of that, which I will give you in a moment later in this article. But anyways, they're going to say that argument one is the varroa mites. This is the arguments being put out are posited in the mainstream media, usually by PR firms and those who are on the take, okay? Number two, parasites. Number three, cell phones. And number four, Terminator seeds. Now, this is a real one, okay, and legitimate. And if you look on this article, you will see, okay, autopsies of bees that have been ingested the Terminator seeds and those that haven't. And you'll see an absolutely clear difference in the vitals. And by the way, on the Survival podcast, Jack Spirko, if you ever listen to that, he did a nice episode on comfrey root and basically the autopsies that he's done, not autopsies, but so to speak, after certain animals have been slaughtered, he's seen, the ones that have been fed on the farms, the ones in the wild, and describing the differences. And what I would say is the main point is that the autopsies do tell a lot. And you can see from the environment and the food they've been eating, you can get some pretty good idea what their overall health was. Okay, now next article is disinfo.com, and this is from February 3rd, 2012, by Miriam Heinen. And this, what is Monsanto doing to our bees? I'm going to just read a couple of paragraphs of this, and I suggest you look at the whole article if you're interested in this issue. Myself, I love bees. I know what the importance of them to us, to our whole civilization is, and I think it's like they say the canary in the coal mine. Well, it's actually the bee in the field. Okay, this is what we really have to watch. So anyways, there was quite a stir amongst beekeepers and anti-GMO activists last fall when chemical and seed giant Monsanto purchased Biologics, a small company best known for its groundkeeping research applying RNAi technology to honeybees, a process that blocks gene expression. This was Monsanto's first acquisition of a pest control biotech company. Since its inception, blah, 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 bee virus. So now we have Monsanto buying and possibly propagating GMO bees. Now, this is very ominous. I mean, number one, is it telling you that they know there's a problem, okay, and they're going to try to make something that will work with their Terminator, Roundup, and all this other poisonous lineup, okay? And again, if I, looking at this, and I'm not like 100% against GMO. There's some benefit of it, but looking at this at all, okay, honestly, the preponderance of evidence is obvious, okay, that GMOs in open field conditions cause unexpected effects, okay, and this would be the case too with certain non-GMO products. So anybody who says GMO is safe when released biologically is full of it, because you couldn't say that with certain invasive species and other things in that right itself. So we have to look at these things very carefully, I believe, and consider very carefully the potential impact. Moving on, okay, just to give a little bit more on Monsanto, one of mine and I know many other people's favorite companies to hate if you really look at them carefully. They're freaking essentially evil. They own large pieces of the administrations, and one after the other in the government. They are the epitome of a crony capital company. So those who think they're libertarians and Republicans and supporting free enterprise and all this, not at all. GMO and Monsanto is not that, at least in the majority. Okay, so 12 products, deadly products made by Monsanto, and this is at hangthebankers.com. I don't know who wrote this. There doesn't seem to be an author's signature, but let's just read the list. Number 1, saccharin. Number 2, PCBs. Number 3, polystyrene. Number 4, atom bomb and nuclear weapons. Number 5, DDT. Number 6, dioxin. Wow, what a string of hits. Number 7, Agent Orange. Number 8, petroleum-based fertilizer. And number 9, Roundup. And I do not have all 12, but I'm sure you can see just from that list there, it's quite enough, okay, to have a major concern about this company and the effect they have on our health and the environment's health. Okay, now taking a little break for something more positive, but again, in the midst of another fascist, tyrannical coup by the government against the people, we're looking at hemp. I've never smoked marijuana in my life. I don't care to smoke it, but I see the value of hemp, and I want the right, as long as I think many others, to grow hemp and do what we can with this legally. Now, this is from hempfarm.org. We're going to go over a couple of things with hemp for your information if you didn't know it. Farmers around the world grow hemp legally and have been doing so for thousands of years. Hemp is a plant grown from a seed, and it can get to be 15 or 20 feet or so tall. It's sister plant to marijuana, but it won't get you high. However, it's good at doing almost everything else except making you high. Although hemp and marijuana are both from the cannabis species, hemp contains virtually no THC, the active thing that will get you high. In fact, it'll give you a headache if you smoke hemp, it says. The seeds are pressed for oil that can be used for food, salad dressing, supplements, and industrial lubrication, diesel fuel, paints, varnishes, and more. Hemp is a distinct variety of the species of cannabis. Hemp is among the oldest industries on the planet, dating back to more than 10,000 years to the beginning of pottery. The Columbia History of the World states the oldest relic of the human industry is a piece of Mesopotamian hemp fabric dated to 8,000 BC. For more than a century, hemp was legal tender to pay American taxes. Over 600,000 acres of hemp grow worldwide today. And the 2002 figures for global hemp sales were U.S. 250 million, 150 million in the United States alone. You can buy it, but you can't grow it here, essentially, although some places are trying. Let's go to the legality. For the first 162 years of America's existence, marijuana was totally legal and hemp was a common crop. But during the 1930s, the U.S. government and the media began spreading outrageous lies about marijuana, which led to its prohibition, etc. For example, marijuana, the devil's weed with roots in hell. Marijuana makes fiends of boys in 30 days, reefer madness, etc. It was banned in the USA under the Marijuana Tax Act of 1937. Now, just from what I know on this, basically large petrochemical interests don't want weed out there because it fixes nitrogen. It's very healthy and easy to enrich your land with it. There are typically, if you look more and more on America, I've totally come to the conclusion that in 8 out of 10 cases what is done for law is being done but the behest of some rich industrialist, some company, or something that is going to benefit the contributors and those who keep those in power. So I think, as usual, we're getting the short end of the stick here, and we're being denied a potentially very beneficial medicine product to make ropes, foods, paper, etc., and and to enrich our land and fertilize our land. All right, now we're going to have a potpourri, so to speak, of stories coming at you from different directions, just to give you a taste of what's going on currently. Woman in class action lawsuit against Xerox dies. Details of the Xerox hearing. This is in reviewjournal.com. This is Las Vegas Review Journal, and this is date by Jennifer Robinson, and I believe this is 7/2 of 14. Yeah, 7/1 it was published on. And basically there was a woman suing the Nevada exchange. Okay, but anyways, let's just read a couple of lines of the story. The Las Vegas woman died Monday, less than 2 weeks after her family went public with details about Nevada HealthLink Insurance Exchange enrollment troubles that kept her from treatment in January for an aggressive brain tumor. So more good work with Obamacare there. More good work. So another person, innocent person, died. I mean, she may have anyways, but you certainly don't want it to be because of some administrative BS. Okay, now a totally different subject on InfoWars, dated June 25th, 2014, by Joseph Miller. Actually, this was from the Daily Caller. Pentagon official, the Obama drone kill memo is out and libertarians were right. It's murder. The Obama administration had sought to keep the memo secret. Joseph Miller is the pen name for a ranking Department of Defense official with a background in U.S. special operations and combat experience in Iraq and Afghanistan. He has worked in strategic planning. On Monday, the White House memo used to justify drone attacks on U.S. citizens was released, and it appears to confirm the worst suspicion of the libertarian critics. The Obama administration had sought to keep the memo secret. Now we know why, because there are no checks and balances. There are no classified courts. Indeed, the memo reveals that the President of the United States ordered the targeted killing of U.S. citizens overseas in violation of their constitutional right to due process, sans any type of oversight outside of the executive. Again, the full article, and we urge you to go to these full articles if you're interested, because we're only giving you samples just to give you an idea and kind of paint a theme and give you an overview. The full article is available on InfoWars and thedailycaller.com. Glenn Greenwald's big NSA story gets squashed. This is an opednews.com, OPEDNEWS.com. This is dated 7/2 of 14. And basically there's been a large story. Glenn Greenwald, who's been the publisher or one of the people working with Snowden to get out the information about the unconstitutional criminal efforts and doings of our quote-unquote government and the NSA, etc., the big brother state that they're trying to foist upon us. Anyways, he was supposed to release a lot of very damaging information against the government, and one that would give us an idea of what was really going on, exactly was being targeted. That story has essentially been certainly mitigated, if even put out at all. And this document is going into the story that basically it appears to have been quashed for national security interests, etc. And I would just like to point out that if you're not aware of it, Glenn Greenwald has joined up with Pierre Omidyar and another big-moneyed NSA government big brother individual, seemingly, in my opinion. And his publications, for example, the Honolulu Civil Beat, are not to be trusted. Basically, I believe that Greenwald and these others have been basically brought into the fold, whether they like it or not, by money. And I just like to caution you of full alternative media. Always follow the money. If they have lots of money, generally speaking, they're going to have some corporate or some large special interest control. And so I urge you as much as possible to listen to the people. Of course, direct news, which I should be doing more of, and I will as I can, but since it's, a total volunteer effort, there's only so much can be done, and that is our problem, okay? Those who have the money and have a professional organization can go out and do these things. They tend to have in general, the impetus to not push the envelope too much and get down to things that will get them possible problems with their advertiser or the government. Okay, police confiscate healthy baby because it was born at home. Yes, believe it or not, this is dcclothesline.com. This is dated June 30th, 2014 by Matt Agorist. Yes, it looks like Matt Agorist. If you know what an agorist is, agorism. So anyways, basically, to put the long story short, this child was born at home, and then they later went to, not in a hospital, not in the Big Brother situation. Then they went in to get her checked out, okay, and they basically confiscated the kid, even though it's healthy, presented them with a large bill, did all kinds of stuff against their will, and basically what the moral of the story seems to me, from that is you will do the way the state tells you, period. Otherwise, end of story, and we will make you pay. That's it. Seizing a child from the parents, with a child in perfectly healthy condition, it's incredible, but I guess it's not, unfortunately, not unexpected, especially out of this administration. Okay, now here's a piece of good news, basically againstcronycapitalism.org. Fantastic and simple. Teenager builds a browser plugin to show you where politicians to get their funding. Basically, this is a plugin that will help get you the information quicker from opensecrets.org, which is basically a funding. It shows you where the fundings people get for their political campaigns and such. And I highly suggest you use that, whether you use this gentleman's browser plugin or not. You can go to opensecrets.org and find out a lot of things. Who's buying Obama, who's buying the Republican puppet of the day, etc. You can find out where the money comes from and where the interests are. Follow the money. And this is not even at all a true clear picture of the whole thing, but at least you have some small sample of what's happening. Okay, now this is an opinion piece from thedailybeast.com, and this is on politics dated 6/28/14. Dawn of the Age of Oligarchy, the alliance between government and the 1%. And this is by Joel Kotkin. Thanks to their cozy relationship with the Obama administration, a new class of super wealthy oligarchs keeps getting more powerful while the country's middle class shrinks. Guys, like I said the last time, I really don't like Romney, and I vote independent, and I'll make that clear. I do unless there's an honest, and there are occasionally some honest, decent, in the two duopoly parties. But I would still, okay, with all the problems, vote Obama over Romney, because I don't want 8 years of Romney, who will be more competent than Obama, but more competent in screwing us, our economy, and the average working person, as he leads us more towards fascism and war. Okay, so I'll say that again. But having said that, Obama is not only quite a disappointment to all of us who didn't vote for him and would never have voted for him, but still had some hope that maybe we were wrong, maybe we had something a little different here. And gosh, to you guys, if you're honest, if you're true progressives or truly honest Democrats wanting for the people, look at what has actually happened. Forget the rhetoric. Forget the party. Look at what's actually happened. Right now, the wealth is concentrated more than ever, okay, at the top. Now, if somebody honestly earns it, who cares to me? If they earn it honestly, great. They probably provided a service and a benefit to some of us. But if it's through political connections and sleaze, okay, and it's screwing over the middle class and all of us, that's really obviously not to be desired. And it's not going to help keep our society stable, and it's not going to be for the betterment of anybody. So anyways, this article goes on, okay. When our current president was elected, many progressives saw the dawning of a new epoch, a more egalitarian and more just age of Obama. Instead, we have witnessed the emergence of the age of oligarch. The outlines of this new epoch are clear in numerous ways. There is a diminished role for small business, greater concentration of financial assets, and troubling decline in home ownership. On a cultural level, there is a general malaise about the prospect for upward mobility for future generations. Again, basically, this is the dailybeast.com by Joel Kotkin, 6/28/14, Dawn of the Age of Oligarchy, the alliance between government and the 1%. Worth your reading if you haven't figured it out already, that Obama is certainly not for the average person. Okay, hands down. Now, this is from the WashingtonTimes.com, and this is dated July 2nd, 2014, and this is the headline: Hands down, Obama is the worst president since World War II poll. And let me tell you, if you can outdo George W. Bush on that one, you are pretty rotten, I got to tell you, okay? So anyways, it says poll after poll shows President Obama, his approval ratings dipped recently in one new Quinnipiac University poll.
American composite American Constitution. 1913, corrupting the system. Devalue dollar, hyperinflation. The Federal Reserve, controlled by Lisa Farm. He can see you lying in your eye. Bye. You know can hide from Georgia Jesus Christ. Hallelujah. No